Why don't we get started? Hello, this is Fred Iantorno, and I'd like to welcome everyone to Tech Talk 360, sponsored by AirPro Diagnostics. I want to thank Lonnie Margot, Josh McFarland, Michael Quinn, and Team AirPro for making all this possible. Our goal is to present topics that you won't normally see in other webinars, and today we've got another good one. The next webinar will be held on June 18th, so mark your calendars. And now I'd like to turn things over to our two great hosts, Jordan Hendler and George Avery. Hey, George, you want to start us off?
Sure. Thank you, Fred. Thank you very much. Thanks to AirPro. Good morning / afternoon, Jordan. How are you?
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Good. Well, we've got a great program for you. And those of you that are out there, we'll tell you in a minute that I'm kind of covering the insurance side and Jordan takes care of the repair side. But for those insurers out there, I know you've got some people around a Polycom and you only got one person signed on, and that's okay with us. Why do I know that? Because that's what I did. So anyway, get as many folks around that Polycom as you can, because it's great information. So with that, Jordan, I'll turn it over to you for a little introduction, and then I'll do mine and we'll get started.
Sure. I'm Jordan Hendler. I am the owner of Admin Concepts, administrator for a collision industry conference, and I work with SCRS and the WMABA, which is a regional association. I have 27 years, can't believe it, in the industry. And actually started out, one of my first gigs was working alongside Mark some. So I'm excited for today's webinar, but I'm here to bring like that collision, the repair side perspective to the discussion. So I'll be listening with my repairer ears, asking questions that I think repairers would want to know if they don't show up in the Q&A. So I'm excited for that.
All right. Thank you very much. George Avery, past chair of CIC. Very proud of that. Past chair of the National Auto Body Council. I'm kind of the insurance guy, which I'm pleased to do that. So as questions come in, and Jordan will explain to that to you in a little bit, how we take questions if you're new to the program. Otherwise, I have a couple things going on. I started the Insurance Roundtable, which is kind of on hold right now, but it will be starting up, I believe, in January. But that's been very, very good. Came out of the body shop, and I'm really proud of the fact that AirPro asked me to be part of this, and I like working with Jordan. And we'll probably mention it a little bit later that we do have a kind of a closer piece where Jordan and I talk a little bit, and just please stick around for that, because that's pretty good. So with that, we've got a little bit of housekeeping, and of course we've got our antitrust, and I always get to read that for you. All participants of this seminar, as participants of the seminar, we need to be mindful of the constraints of antitrust laws. There shall be no discussions of agreements or concerted actions that may restrain competition. This prohibition includes the exchange of information concerning individual prices, rates, coverages, market prices, claim settlement practices, and any other competitive aspect of an individual company's operation. So each participant is obligated to speak up immediately for the purposes of preventing any discussion falling outside this outside the bounds. So at the end of that, I always say we've got that going for us, which is nice. But Jordan and I will keep track of that. But we always say that if you ever feel there's an antitrust, please send up through the Q&A. Please send us a note. But I think we'll be okay. We'll be taking questions, as I mentioned a couple times. And of course, we don't take live questions because that's kind of a time eater in a way. And it also gives us a chance to see your complete question. So we'll be using Q&A. So Jordan, if you'd be kind enough to kind of remind everybody the proper way to use Q&A.
Sure. So the Q&A is the button on the controls of your Zoom. And what we do is we will hold the questions, I believe today, till the end. And there might be more than one question that's asking the same thing. So we like to combine questions if possible. And as well as George and I will have our questions. We'll do our best to get to every audience question that we can with the time allowed. And we appreciate you guys interacting that way. We also today will have 3 polling questions as part of the presentation. So this is the first time we've used them as part of our webinar. We hope they go off without a hitch. But when Mark gets to particular slides that have those questions, we'll throw them up on the screen. So just be watching for those questions. We'll cue them out. And we're excited to have that new feature as part of our webinar.
Perfect. All right, we got a busy, I got a lot of good information here, so we'll get through our introduction pretty quick. First, I want to welcome Mark Claypool. Mark, I've known Mark for a long time. He's the executive director of the Automotive Management Institute. Here's something that I want to say. Please go see Mark's bio. It was sent in the email. Now it's been cut down a little bit on the slide that's in front of you, but I'll tell you what, from a learning perspective, and I think it's really worth looking at his bio. So Mark, I'm really proud of that. I'm going to introduce you here, but I'm going to tell you one thing I've found, having been involved in training at a previous job I had, is what I found is everybody complains for weeks that they've got to go get trained. But what I found is after they get trained, they brag for years that they got trained and accomplished something. So I just encourage everybody that learning is something that we need to do. And of course, our title today is Learning Equals Competitiveness. So Mark, we're looking forward to what you've got to say. And again, I always like hearing you. And with that, we'll turn it over to you. And thank you very much.
Thank you
Yep.
so much.
See you at the
Thanks.
Q&A.
All right. I'm going to share my screen and launch the PowerPoint. So give me a moment. We'll get this thing going. All right, we should be good to go. Well, first of all, what a pleasure. It's terrific to be here. Thank you so much, George. Frank Jordan, this is wonderful. Thank you to AirPro Diagnostics for the opportunity to be here and for these ongoing webinars. These are awesome. And some of the content that you share is terrific. Bob Redding, I guess, was your speaker the last time. He's a colleague of ours with ASA as the lobbyist in Washington. Terrific guy. So I really appreciate this opportunity, and I'm in awfully good company. So first of all, what I'd like to do is read this quote from the author and American philosopher, Eric Hoffer, because it sets the tone for today's webinar, okay? So in times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. So if you notice the distinction here, learners versus the learned. The world is rapidly changing, and those who embrace ongoing learning will be the ones that thrive. There's no resting on your laurels here whatsoever. So today we're here to talk about building a culture where learning is continuous, embraced, and valued, and is what gives you a competitive edge. So they talked about my bio. I'll skip over that right away and just move on to that first survey question. We're going to test this for the first time here. And so if you had your choice, which would you prefer to have in your organization? Would you want it to be a training culture or a learning culture? And Fred, I'll let you run those numbers to see what kind of results we get.
All right.
So A is training culture, B, or I guess they're both A's, learning culture. All right, learning culture seems to be the leader for sure. By far, 81%. Well, that's great. And I would have to agree with you. Thank you, Fred. We'll close that out. I would have to agree with you that we definitely want a learning culture. Okay. So let's get started. I'm here today. I'm representing the Automotive Management Institute. This webinar is designed to explore the power of learning in a business and in your business environment, particularly in the ever-evolving landscape of the collision repair industry. Your learning objectives today are to gain a greater understanding of the role and the impact that learning is going to have in your organization. I'm going to move this around just a little bit so I'm not unfortunately, these images are covering some of my notes. So I know what I'm going to do. Hold on one second, folks. Sorry about this. And we practiced and everything too, didn't we?
No pressure, Mark, no pressure.
Well, hey, I'll give you some killer filler while you're doing that.
We're
Please
learning.
do.
We're
So,
learning.
Ted Stein, if you're out there, if someone knows Ted Stein, he has two great quotes. I've used them, and he pulled me aside and said, quit using them because they're mine. But I'm going to give him credit. But I'll tell you, Mark, his statement is, the only thing worse than training my people and have them leave is not training them and having them stay. And so I want to just
Good
throw
point,
that as free.
George.
And I
Good
thought
point.
that was okay.
I am actually going to move the Zoom slide over to my other screen because the images are covering my speaker notes. So that didn't happen in our practice session. So that should take care of it. There we go. Got it. Thanks for bearing with us in that process, folks. So your learning objectives today are to gain a greater understanding of the role and the impact that learning has in your organization. And I want you to gain a greater appreciation for the role and impact of learning. And when we're done, you'll have an understanding of the difference between a training culture and a learning culture. And you're going to learn how to develop a learning culture so that you can establish a sustainable competitive advantage in your market or your marketplaces. AMI will be a valuable resource for you in that endeavor. So first, let me review what the Automotive Management Institute is. AMI was founded in 1989 as a 501c3 nonprofit organization with the help of the Automotive Service Association, ASA, and then many other organizations and corporations as well. AMI provides administration and management education by collaborating with and recognizing the industry's best training providers. We offer professional accreditation and recognition programs that inherently create administrative and management career paths, and they empower staff and management to become a part of the improvement process through education. Today, in addition to accrediting over 500 live instructor-led courses, AMI also offers 350 relevant courses from some of the industry's finest training providers. We firmly believe at AMI that knowledge equals competitiveness, and learning is the only source of a sustainable competitive advantage. We have tested core competencies that provide consistency with the foundational knowledge needed to be successful. And we have a treasure trove of electives that you can take to address strengths and weaknesses. When you present your AMI credentials to those in the know in this industry, you are showing that you have invested the necessary time and the effort to earn these highly respected professional designations. And before I go any further, I want to acknowledge Jeff Peavy from ICAR. He was the executive director of AMI a few years ago, and he did a tremendous amount of research to put this approach to learning into a presentation. And even though he put this together a few years ago, it's still very relevant to this day. I've just basically updated it a bit and put in my personal touches. So thank you, Jeff, for that. So learning isn't anything that's new. It's been around since the Garden of Eden. Learning is a means of growth. From a skilled trades perspective, it's how knowledge and skill has been passed from generation to generation through apprenticeships and guilds and other means. From a business management perspective, universities and training organizations like AMI have provided training to understand how to better run a business. So while learning isn't anything new, what has changed is the pace at which we must now learn to remain viable and competitive. You must learn or you'll be left behind. Much of what I'm about to share with you comes from research done and revealed in these two books, Creating a Learning Culture by Marcia Connor and The Living Company by Ari DeGoss. They are both deep dives into corporate culture and demonstrate how to achieve immediate, lasting results by encouraging curiosity and learning at all levels of the organization. Ultimately, and this is a spoiler alert, people work best together when learning as they work. So with that, let's consider the history of competitive advantage and the role that training and learning has played. What it took to have a competitive advantage has evolved over the centuries. Long ago, natural resources were largely untapped. Knowledge was needed, but only by a few, and lots of labor was required. Think about agriculture or shipbuilding and those types of things. When mankind reached the industrial age, more knowledge was required, but still attained by only a few. A tremendous amount of labor was needed, and that labor had to then be managed more so than in the past. So those with knowledge had to learn how to manage people, resources, bricks and mortar, how to do all of these things as effectively as possible. So think back to railroads, manufacturing. Think of the Ford Motor Company when it started in the Industrial Revolution, food production, things of that nature. Consider, for example, what was needed for the world wars in the 20th century as well. Well, then next, we needed people who were not only skilled, but knowledgeable. There was a need for what is now considered traditional education and knowledge development. Knowledge then became intellectual capital. And you pair that with skilled workers and their knowledge, and you could become viable and competitive if you could keep up with the changes that were happening faster and faster. Well, things were picking up even quicker still in the later decades of the 20th century. So learning was required to build upon that knowledge base. Workers needed to be prepared to learn individually, organizationally, then learn more and more, and it never ever stops. And in our industry, it isn't enough just to be skilled. Our workforce now must be skilled learners. So to review, we have evolved from natural resources and labor workers to capital that included knowledge by a few, while we still needed those labor workers. Next, we needed workers who were more skilled and more knowledgeable. Then we moved into more of what we experience in today's world, where learning happens nonstop and happens quickly. We still need the labor workers, but we must have people as skilled learners. So having a competitive advantage has shifted toward intellectual and learning capital. Each layer here in this presentation is adding value, but learning capability sets the highest performing organizations apart. And notice the blue box over here on the right. It isn't enough just to have the opportunity and the capability to learn, but learning speed is the next element we must take into consideration. We need to be able to have the ability to learn what we need to learn quickly, because again, if we don't keep up, we will lag behind those top performers. Remember, we're talking about how learning is an organization's competitive advantage. So now let's pivot from the general to specifics of the auto repair industry. The concept I've been sharing with you applied directly to our work, and you should know better than anyone that this matters more now than it ever has. Today, we need to know where to access repair data. What can we do, and what can we and what we cannot weld, the different high-strength steels. How close to batteries can we weld? What temperatures can we run in the spray booth, especially with EVs? And then, of course, there's calibration. So what about estimating? Shops are leaving millions of dollars on the table because they don't know how to document their repairs correctly. What verbiage they should be using, and more. So AMI and the Automotive Service Association, ASA, are working on this, and we're going to have some announcements coming very soon to help shops in this particular area. Well, let's look at training in the modern day. It's not just about absorbing information, it's transforming behavior and understanding. So again, let's read this quote together. We define learning as the transformative process of taking in information that, when internalized and mixed with what we have experienced, changes what we know and builds on what we do. It's based on input, process, and reflection. It is what changes us. And that's from the new Social Learning by Tony Bingham and also Marcia Connor, who wrote one of the books that I mentioned earlier on. So what it takes, learning it to be transformative, it takes in and gets internalized and mixed with what we've already experienced. It has an impact on what we know and then builds upon what we do. It then changes us and our organizations, and it enables us to hopefully stay out in front of the curve at best. So training can be passive, but real learning is active, internalized, and transformative. Training alone doesn't change us. Only learning, only through learning can training be made effective. And that's an important distinction as well. Training is one thing, but truly learning, that's where we can be the most effective. Right? It increases our capabilities and it makes us better, more self-aware, and more valuable as well. Some of you may be familiar with a model called the 5 moments of learning. These are key moments when learners are most receptive and in need of support. So these are, number 1, when learning something for the first time. They're learning the basics. A student in an auto body training program, for example, is learning something from scratch. That's the first moment of learning. Or a new apprentice who comes in without a whole lot of skill sets at the very beginning. That is moment of learning number 1. Number 2, when wanting to learn more, that is building upon one's knowledge. An example here would be like moving from a prepper to a painter, or from a C-level tech to a B-level, and then on to an A-level. The third moment of learning, when trying to apply what has been learned. Well, at that point, you might need some on-the-job support. Apprenticeships are a great way for this as well, trying to apply what you've learned, trying to get that muscle memory, make it truly understandable. We may have received that training, but did we truly learn it? Do we understand what I call the why factor? Why do we do it this way? We just need a little bit more understanding, perhaps, or maybe even some more repetitions. With repetition builds mastery. The fourth level, when things go wrong, that would be troubleshooting, solving problems as they come up. We need to learn from that. Nothing ever goes wrong in our industry, right? Well, of course it does. So let's identify what happened. Let's learn from it and not make the same mistake again. And then number 5, when things change, adapting to new processes, technology, or expectations. Isn't that our industry virtually every day? I mean, look at how ADOS has thrown us for a loop over recent times. So we've had to adapt and perhaps scramble even to keep up at times. All right, look at this blue arrow. You'll notice that it's forever going upward. All right, this is a perpetual arrow. Our industry is progressing with knowledge and skills and technology at a very rapid pace. So when we first enter the industry, or someone does, they come in, they get some initial learning, they gain further knowledge and skill, then build upon that with more and more. But some will eventually fail for any number of reasons. Some people will have become tired or lazy or stagnant, or have a resistant mindset to continuous learning. And this leads to failing and falling behind in this very fast-moving industry of ours. But you contrast that with the business and their dedication and discipline to continual learning. This ensures growth and relevancy. This is how shops become and stay market leaders. Learning is the key to success and competitive advantage. We can never know it all, but we have more access to information and learning than we ever have before. Now, this is interesting. To put our current learning culture into perspective, in 1900, human knowledge doubled about every 100 years. By 1945, right after World War II, human knowledge was doubling every 25 years. Today, some areas of human knowledge are doubling every 12 hours. This is in data-rich and data-intensive sectors like healthcare and artificial intelligence. So, do you see just how crucial it is to have a learning culture? In a world moving this fast, standing still means you're falling behind. So, how do we get there? Or how do we stay there? Let's dive into organizational culture. And again, I'd like to read this definition. Culture can be defined as a pattern of learned assumptions that has worked well enough to be considered valid and therefore taught to new members as the correct way to perceive, think, and feel in relation to the problems of survival and integration. Again, this comes from that book by Marcia Connor. All right, learning assumptions shape behaviors, often subconsciously. They are perceived as the right way. It feels right. I'm certain it's the right way. So we teach our new staff and we show them this is our way. And they must assimilate to the cultural norm within the shop to be accepted by the group. These, on your perspective, need to be examined to foster a true learning culture in your organization. Whether you like it or not, the hidden underlying assumptions held by your staff ultimately dictates your ability to implement new programs and services that are going to help you to grow, to move forward, to be competitive. Do you truly know what that culture is within your organization? Do you set the example at the top? I'm guessing most of you probably do, or you wouldn't be here today. You're here to learn more. But please give this the time and the energy that it needs to assess what your cultural situation is. Now, leaders will choose a learning culture over a training culture every day of the week and twice on Sundays. While training culture delivers content, a learning culture encourages continual growth and shared ownership of learning. Training cultures are instructor-centered and instructor-led, while learning cultures are learner-centered. Training cultures provide opportunities, usually as a scheduled event. Learning cultures provide opportunities for continuous, decentralized learning that is shared with others. And then my personal favorite is the one at the bottom. The emphasis in a learning culture is on results. From my days with an apprenticeship program I started in the year 2000 called Mentors at Work, I told mentors to remember this when they were training the apprentice. Tell me, I'll probably forget. Show me, I might remember, but involve me and I'll understand and be able to apply what I have learned. That's results-based, ultimately. A learning culture cannot be a bunch of individuals on their own journey within your organization. Not all that long ago, this is the way that it was, and there's still some of them that are structured like this, and many of you are old enough to remember that. Give a tech his own work bay or give him a couple of work bays to work out of, leave him alone, send him cars, and let him fix them. And that was pretty much the norm. And there's still a lot of that out there, but the landscape is changing. If there's one thing that millennials and Gen Zers are looking for and what they like is teamwork. Today, in a true learning culture, it has to be a team with a shared vision and a thirst for knowledge through learning and experience. Owners and managers in a learning culture set expectations to learn. They reward learning and knowledge sharing. They lead by example, like you're doing today by attending this webinar. These owners and managers hire for learning potential by asking pertinent questions during the interview process. From the beginning with a new hire, you are creating a shared vision that motivates ongoing development. And get this, culture isn't just another program to implement. It's based on actual human behavior and beliefs. So it's your job as an owner or a manager to set the expectation to learn continuously. Lead by example. Hold your staff accountable for learning. Test them. Ask them to share what they've learned, and you do the same yourself. Importantly, learning is not an interruption. For example, If you want your front office staff to take a course in AMI on answering the phones, don't ask them to do it while they're doing their jobs. A half-hour long course that takes 2 or 3 hours to complete because of constant work interruptions is less than effective, and it sends the message that it isn't really that important to you either. Give them uninterrupted time to take the course and pass the test. I just recently had a shop owner who called and said he gives his staff paid time off to take AMI courses. I absolutely love that. It tells his team that this is important enough for them to dedicate whatever is necessary to learn the materials and apply it. On the previous screen, I mentioned sharing knowledge. You need to set that expectation and live it yourself. Admit that you don't know everything, but you're working on it. Some might suggest firing the know-it-alls within your shop because they can break the process of a learning culture, and they often do. So you have to decide on that. You need to counsel them, get them to drop the ego and open up to the fact that they don't know everything and they won't fit into the organization if they continue in that way. But if ego gets in the way of sharing with others, especially new people, then these people, these know-it-alls, are a liability to your learning culture, and it's time to find their replacement. It's also your job as an owner or manager of a business centered around a learning culture to establish a shared vision with your team. Why are we in business? What are we all about? I've done many workshops on millennials and Gen Z, and I've written about it in Body Shop Business Magazine. And for most of that generation, work is not the entirety of life like it might have been with baby boomers. I can tell you that the focus of a business that they work for cannot be just about money. They must see a higher calling. Work must make the world a better place and must have some element of community. These generations are more transient because many businesses don't get that fact. But they will stay with you longer if you keep all of this in mind and practice it and involve them. You are truly a team. Years ago, I wrote about this in a cover story in Body Shop Business Magazine. Take an inanimate object like a vehicle and bring it to life for your teams. For example, this is Mrs. Smith's minivan. She uses it to take her kids to daycare, to school, to soccer practice. She goes to the grocery store in this minivan and fills it with groceries to feed her family. This is a key part of her world. We have a job to do. We need to fix this car right. We need to do it safely and quickly so that Mrs. Smith can get her family back to normal. We have a purpose here, and we're making a difference in someone's life. Oh, now here comes the next vehicle. It's Sam Stevens' work truck. He depends on that truck every day to make a living, and so on and so forth. You get it? Shared vision, making the world a better place. A learning culture must also be protected, or it's slowly going to fade away. Put value on certifications and accreditations like organizations like AMI. Provide bonuses and reward the behavior you want to see more of. Interview carefully so that you hire based on learning attitude and aptitude and start them off right. Now let's talk a little bit about apprenticeships. Having a bona fide true apprenticeship program will be an integral part of a learning culture in our industry. By that, I mean a structured system, choosing the right people to be the teachers, the mentors, the right people to assume the roles of apprentices, a roadmap to follow, and accountabilities for learning progress and proficiency, and having rewards along the way. 25 years ago, Lyra Holt, the founder of CarStar, and I launched a nationwide apprenticeship program that I mentioned earlier called Mentors at Work. We got it approved through the U.S. Department of Labor and their Bureau of Apprenticeship and Training. We had grants available for shops to attract and train new people. And industry leaders that you probably all know, Mike Anderson from Wagon Work and Collision Advice, Mike Quinn at AirPro, Kathy Mello at TGIF Body Shop, Bill Lawrence, who was then the CEO of Caliber Collision, Rex Dunn at True to Form. They all had great success with this program. In 2008, Verifax purchased Mentors at Work, and then the recession hit. and it has really not seen the light of day since. But Lyra Holt has formed a company called Mentor Mentee, which has taken what we did 25 years ago and brought it up to the technology of today. And we're currently in talks with them right now on how we might be able to work together to truly make a structured apprenticeship system that can become a part of a learning culture. There's nothing else like it out there, and we're excited to see where it takes us. So the next survey, Fred, if you could pull that up, would you be interested in learning more about an apprenticeship system developed by AMI, ASA, Lyra Holt's Mentor Mentee? Yes or no? Okay. I think that's pretty definitive. All right, well over 80%. So definitely stay tuned. We're going to be working on that and hopefully have some announcements here very shortly. Okay, 83% was our final number, I believe. Outstanding. All right, your main takeaway from today's webinar is that the willingness and capability to learn as a team fosters your ability to adapt to a rapidly changing industry. The core message is that learning is not a one-time event or a program. It's a mindset of a cultural foundation. In a world where the only constant is change, the ability to learn is the most sustainable competitive advantage. And once you see a true learning culture, you cannot unsee it, and it's going to be hard to ever envision yourself going back. And from a leadership and management perspective, AMI is your partner in building and maintaining a learning culture. So here's a list of the professional designations, or as we call them, the accreditations that people can earn. Most technical training is left to others, the OEMs and ICAR, paint companies, frame companies, etc. But with a few exceptions, we focus mostly on the front office and the management side of the business. I mentioned earlier, we offer over 350 online courses and have approved 500 instructor-led courses that are either done in person or as webinars. And we've also, and this is a new thing that you're hearing for the first time, we've also just agreed to award AMI credits to those who attend business group meetings hosted by paint companies and others because of the great value that they receive from these events. And we've also approved credit for the new 3M front office 3-day training class that they just recently launched. It's a fantastic program. I cannot recommend it enough. You want to look into that. Ask your 3M rep about it, okay? Fred, the next survey, if you would please, sir. What level of AMI have you achieved in your career? You would take a moment and check the correct ones for you. Got a bunch of masters. The masters are the fastest at the quick draw. Okay. So several AMs, that's accredited master automotive managers. And then many of you have taken some, and then some have not taken any. So that's great information. Thank you very much. We'll wrap that one up. Thank you, Fred. All right. I'd like to share with you what it takes to earn the various levels of accreditation. So notice that we're both in collision and mechanical, and we also are very viable for heavy-duty truck operations as well. The AAM, the Accredited Automotive Manager, takes 120 credits. To earn your master's, takes 180 credits. If you're going for your master's in estimating, it's 55 hours plus ICAR certificates and ASC certification as well. And then we have electric vehicle manager accreditations as well. So those are the various amounts of credits that you need to earn the beginning level of accreditation. Here's a list of some of the core competencies. I'm going to just leave these on screen for a moment and go through them. Everything that you see here is available on our website, which you can see right here, amionline.org. So these are some of the main things that are covered there. Then we get into the AAM and those courses as well. The Masters builds upon that. The estimators, you can see those as well. Our website, amionline.org, very easy to navigate through. You can go in, you can see our course catalog of the various courses we have, and then the next thing you can do is create your login, and then you have like a college transcript as you progress through this. All right, so my closing quote is my own. AMI exists to help businesses in the auto repair industry learn, grow, and compete to the very best of their ability by helping foster a learning culture within those businesses. Learning equals competitiveness. And we at AMI are here as a resource for you. For that percentage that said you hadn't taken any courses with us yet, I invite you to explore it and look into working toward accreditation. So there's my contact information. I truly cannot thank AirPro enough for the opportunity to be here today. And I thank all of you for taking some time out of your very full schedule. We all have very full schedules, but I do appreciate your taking the time to be here.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks,
Mark.
Appreciate that a lot. I think there's a lot there. You know, Mark, real quick, we wait for any questions that come in. I just thought I'd ask, you know, in my previous life, and I was involved in education and training, I was a consultant with the company I worked for, that I took care of the education and training for the technical side. And there was a big argument about, you know, do you need to hire experienced people or can you train anybody to do anything? And my takeaway from your presentation is kind of where we landed, and that is, you know, you can train them, but you gotta do some hands-on. I mean, we had some cases where, do you understand that? Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, do it. Well, I don't understand it that well. You know, that's kind of what I got. What are your thoughts
Exactly.
about that? Or I didn't know if you had any comments about that.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's training. We can train all day long, but unless give you an example outside of our industry, my wife is a professional dog trainer and owns a couple of dog daycare centers outside of Chicago. She can train a dog, but unless they do it with multiple repetitions in multiple locations to build that habit, until they go through those processes, it doesn't sink in and you'll lose it. So training somebody, if they're not actually going to get that hands-on, as you mentioned, can only go so far. So training is a start, but truly mastering it, truly learning it, you need to share the why factor. You need to get those repetitions in and let them attempt to do the things that you're asking them to do. Watch over their shoulder, give them coaching along the way until you know for a fact that they actually got it.
Do you have any trouble? Do you have any trouble with people that, you know, you look over their shoulder, right? Like when I was handling claims, I settled total losses. And one day the boss came up and said, I'm going to sit beside you while you settle the total. Holy Toledo. That scared the hell out of me. But man, one of them was taking a recorded statement. Do you know how to take a recorded statement? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take one from me. Holy crap. I didn't even know what to say first. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's hands-on working on something, and then there's hands-on, you know, doing something, verbally settling a total.
Like demonstrating your skill.
Yeah.
You know, do you see, sometimes you get pushback. You ain't going to watch me do that. Well, I got to tell you, it made me better. I didn't like 1 minute of it, but it made me a lot better. Is that full? I heard that as well, I think.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of different ways to look at it. You and I are baby boomers, millennials, Gen Zers. They work in teams, and they go to school in teams, and they're looking across the table. They're looking over each other's shoulders all the time. So the younger workers are more, I guess, prepared for that. They're not uncomfortable with having that done. If you are a shop owner and you have the liability of the repair, I'm free to look over someone's shoulder anytime I want. And the same thing if you have a mentor who is teaching someone, they're accountable for making sure their apprentice gets it, that their apprentice can now start to do these things on their own, and over time will do it more efficiently, get to the 120% or 150%, whatever it might be. But they're going to start at 40% and work their way through it. And the only way they're going to improve on a hands-on, on-the-job kind of thing. They're not in a training school. They're in a real live work environment. So new hires need to understand we're going to be looking over your shoulder. We're going to help you. We're going to coach you. It's non-threatening. We want you to be better because we want you to be a long-term member of our team. So don't worry about it. We're going to look over your shoulder. We're going to check your work. We're going to look at your testing, all of those things, because we want you to be a part of this outstanding team.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet.
I think I want to echo, Mark, what you were just saying as like an observational, because those shops who are training technicians as part of teams, when they can use that team environment and apprentices can just come right in, I see that as the shops that are doing that style as the most successful. And I see them doing it a lot with teams. I see only some shops doing it for office personnel, management personnel. Like it's almost like some of them have conditioned themselves for this works well with training technicians or painters, but yet transferring that into the front end seems to be not obvious to all of them. I don't know if there's anything you can comment to that, but it does
Sure.
oftentimes feel like that piece is lost. And especially, when we're teaching people how to repair plan, when we're teaching people how to blueprint, like being able to present a proper repair plan, it does feel like there are things missed because they're not taking that same approach. As an example, especially with people's different learning styles, to what George said, it's, oh, I can't do it if you're watching me, or like, I think that when there's a team, it just seems to go better. But I'd love to hear more of what you think, especially like on that side of the business.
Sure. Well, and some of those roles in the front office are, going to be singular. You're going to have one person at the front desk ultimately, but you may want to be cross-training people, and so that they can fill in when somebody's on vacation or taking a lunch break or at the doctor, whatever it might be. 20 years ago, Mike Anderson and I built standard operating procedures for the front office. We built standard operating procedures for estimating. It's called SOPMD. We have just released several SOPs for the heavy-duty truck side. A gentleman by the name of Dean Hancock and I. SOPMD.net is the web address for that. We are in the process of creating some on the auto side as well. But once they go through and you have an SOP that is for answering your phones or going through an estimate or doing your accounting and those types of things, it is the standard way that we do business, the culture that we had talked about. When they can go through the SOP step by step and understand how we do it here, and then start to apply it with someone mentoring them, looking over their shoulder, checking how they're doing it, then they're going to ramp up that much faster. You're sharing your intellectual capital with people. You're not losing it when somebody leaves, when you actually have your SOPs documented. So hopefully that addresses what you're talking about.
It does, and especially like in a lot of shops, right? Like they have one person doing that job, and there's not a lot of wiggle room for that person to be gone or for another person to step in, which that's where like having resources for getting SOPs, because creating them is so hard, right? It's such a time consumptive effort.
Right.
So yeah, that's really helpful. I do see that like that is something as a resource that people need to know that. We do have one more question. I think it's the end of it, unless George, you want to circle back, but Chuck Olson has submitted a question. How would you coach a learner to embrace a continuous learning culture when offered?
Hey, Chuck, how you doing? Been a long time. So how would you approach a learner and help them to understand that this is a long-term thing? We're not just going to learn this and be stagnant. There's a number of things that you can do. First of all, you can make learning a priority. You can bring opportunities to the forefront. Hey guys, in this area that you operate in, I just read this article. I'm going to post it on the bulletin board, or I'm going to share it with you by email, and I'd like you to read it. Some of the things that are shown in Body Shop Business Magazine over the years, they actually had quizzes at AMI that you could read the article, go on, take the quiz, and show that you understood what you read. And now let's start to apply it. So it comes from you at the top, Chuck. If you are continually learning and you go, I just went to an AMI workshop, or I was at SEMA and I attended some of the repair-driven workshops that they offered, and these are some of the things I learned, and I brought home some resources for all of you. You're setting that example at the top, and then you are letting everybody know other opportunities that are there. You're pointing them in the direction of AMI. You're sending them to ICAR courses, all of those types of things. It's part of your culture that has to be led by you as the owner or the manager.
You know, that's that is a good answer. And what I think the problem is, you know, and Chuck probably lived this, is that you go to approach somebody and they go, look, I have 20 years of experience. And it's an old joke, but I've wanted to say, well, do you have 20 years of experience, or do you have 1 year 20 times? That's what I want to know. And you can't say that, but you know, that is a struggle. That when you do approach somebody, they're going, what are you talking to me for? Go talk to somebody else. That's very good, Mark. I thought that was great information. Appreciate it a lot. It was good seeing you. And thank you so much for taking time to share this with everybody. I think everybody got a lot out of it.
Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
So we'll thank you again, Mark, and I double down on especially from the repairers perspective, like they need to have that culture. And why don't we just go into our post-show wrap up?
Yeah, don't go away. Let's do your
more minutes, Fred. Don't go away. Yeah.
Well, all right. So let me say this. First of all, it was great. Known Mark a long time, and obviously everybody he mentioned are icons in the industry when it comes to training. I will say that we have to be very careful with sales pitches. And I think what Mark talked about is not a sales pitch in my mind. He did mention, you know, AMI, and that's fine. But one of the problems I've seen out there, Jordan, is you get great information and then you hang up and go, all right, that's great. Learned a lot. What the hell do I do first? You know, I'm going 100 miles an hour. I don't know where to start. And I think Mark went through that by covering some of the things that AMI does. So I just want to say, because every once in a while I'll get somebody that'll say, well, that was just a sales pitch. And I don't think so. I think that was key information to give you your first step, what to do first. So I wanted to just throw that out in case somebody had that in the back of their mind. And if they didn't, you can forget all that.
I totally agree, George. I think also like there are a lot of shop owners, managers from the repairs perspective who participate in things and then go on to the next thing where they haven't shared it within their, and conversely, I know numerous that actually do, like ask for presentations. I know for CIC, for instance, a lot of people that were there, they download the presentations off the website, they share it with their teams and give them like, these are the takeaways that I got out of it. Slide 7, slide 15, you know, things like that. But I do think that there is oftentimes a gap in especially taking advantage of solutions like AMI and actually like in taking scheduled time to learn.
Yeah.
Whereas instead of just hoping that you can participate, you know, we have a trade show here where I'm at. CIC is going to be in Richmond, Virginia next week. And it's followed directly by the Southeast Collision Conference. And I do see where there are shops that are intentional. There are vendors, insurers, every segment, right, that are intentional about, I'm scheduling these things, I'm going to these things. But others, it's I'll just have to see what my week is like. I hear that a lot, right? Which tells me that they're struggling to make this a priority. And whether that's economic, whether it's a personnel issue, or whether it's just they have not compartmentalized their calendar to go, I'm making this a priority. I'm going to make sure I'm in community. I'm getting in the environment to learn. I'm, networking and things like that. So I do see where when we have a little bit, like right now, that economic shift, that this can be the first thing to go. And I would just encourage people that this is the first thing that should stay.
Yeah, I agree. When times get tough, training gets dropped. I'll tell you what, for our insurance folks out there, I want a big learning for me. Yeah, a good learning for me here, especially in the insurance world, is now that centralization is so popular, meaning you have a lot of claim representatives in one spot. What Mark said about, if I'm sitting out there in a cube, if you come up to me at my age, and I thought Mark's point was great, George, I'm going to sit with you for a minute. Everything is okay. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not going to get fired. I would just like to hear you settle a total loss. And I'd like to give you some feedback. Whereas now what Mark said for new folks, at least what I heard for new folks, is you can walk out and go, hey, on Tuesday, I'm going to sit with you and we're going to do total losses. Okay. So I just encourage all of our insurance folks, and I'm not telling you what to do because you got it, but I'm telling you, that's a great learning for me to go sit with because I learned so much from it, but I hated it. And to have Mark say, well, kind of depends where you are in life as to whether you like that or not. And I thought that was great. I really did. So I take advantage of that, especially if you're in a centralized environment. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. We, from especially like the vantage point that I have with the repair community and their level of participation and engagement with education opportunities, I still think we're way below where we should be. Even when we were riding the high of, having work scheduled 6 months out, I still don't see the level of engagement that I think that we should. And it shows in the output, right? Like you said, and I have a perfect example of this thrown in my face in the last couple of weeks where there's a shop that, and I'm not going to name names, of course not, but for instance, they are the quintessential, I've been doing this for 20 years, but it was the same year repeated. They're not accessing repair information. They're not, updating themselves on their training for general practical with new vehicle technologies. They're not scanning. They're not calibrating. It's atrocious, so it definitely, it has to just come from the top down. And when it does, and when everybody is on board with that learning environment, it's such a massive difference in work quality, and not just work quality, but profitability.
Yeah, I agree.
There is a direct correlation, training, money.
The other problem is that if everybody does what what we learned today, you got the insurers go over doing their thing, repairs over doing their thing. And that's why I like iCar, because that's a time to get together, AMI. I mean, I used to have, I had a body shop come to the claim center, sat with a claim rep, walked away and said, well, I learned a lot, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to take better photos and I'm going to label them because I can see what the hell they're going through with. Same thing. We need to get in it, how do you do that today? But I'm telling you, you get a taste of what the other side's going through. Somehow, I don't know where that's at, but to do that, but man, that person just as much is, I went and sat with this, even though I came out of the shop, it was so long ago, sat with the shop. Why do you do this? I'll tell you why. Oh, and your goal in life, as Larry Wallner said, your goal in life at any argument is not to be the person at the end that says, oh. So
fair.
That's all I got, Jordan. Thank you,
too.
Fred. Thanks to AirPro very, very much. Thank you for making this possible. I think is pretty valuable. So Jordan, I'll leave it to you to close it, and everybody have a good day.
I agree. And so I'll thank everybody. Thank Fred, AirPro, And obviously you guys do have a culture of sharing learning. So, you know, we all, I think on every segment of the industry appreciate when that investment's made. Our next webinar is June 18th. Fred, is there anything else you want people to know?
No, that's good. We're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you all. See you next time.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.